Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a crucial strategic briefing based on Morgan Housel's book, Same as Ever. So if you're a leader focused on building something that truly lasts, this one's for you. We're going to cut through all that noise of fleeting trends and really focus on the bedrock principles of long-term stability. Let's get started.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll take apart a huge flaw in modern strategy, the forecasting trap. Then we'll give you something way more reliable to steer by, what we're calling your unchanging compass. After that, we'll uncover a hidden threat that actually comes from success itself, the danger of calm. And to wrap it up, we'll arm you with two critical defensive plays. First, how to survive the storm that's definitely coming, and second, how to thrive once it passes. As a leader, you get questions like this all the time, right? You're expected to predict the future, to know what's just around the corner. Your board, your team, your investors, they all want that crystal ball vision. But let's just be honest for a second. What's the real answer to a question like this? That's it. The honest answer is nobody knows. And this is the absolute core of Housel's argument. The one constant throughout history is surprise. So building your long-term strategy on a specific forecast, that's like trying to build a skyscraper on shifting sand. It's not just risky, it's fundamentally unstable.
So this leads to a really important question. If prediction is so flawed, why do so many of our strategies rely on it? This is the very heart of what we're calling the forecasting trap. Let's break down exactly why this approach just fails over and over again.
I love this quote because it completely redefines risk in a way every leader needs to hear. The biggest threat to your company isn't the competitor you spend all those hours analyzing. No, it's the risk that's left over when you think you've covered all your bases, the one that's not even on your team's radar.
And history just proves this again and again. The biggest dominoes, we're talking world wars, market crashes, pandemics, they're often tipped by the smallest, most random things. A single accident, a chance meeting, that can set off a chain reaction with world-altering consequences. And you can never, ever forecast those events.
Okay, so if forecasting specific events is basically a fool's errand, where do you anchor your strategy? Well, Housel argues the answer is in a major strategic shift. You have to learn to separate the temporary noise from the permanent signal, and that becomes your unchanging compass. This slide just lays it out so clearly. On the left, you've got the expiring information. The quarterly reports, market forecasts, all the stuff that's going to be irrelevant in a decade, maybe even next year. But on the right, that's the permanent information. That's the signal. We're talking about the deep-seated patterns of human behavior, how people react to fear, to greed, to tribalism. That stuff never changes, and that is the reliable compass for your strategy.
This is the fundamental truth you have to build your strategy on. Look, technologies and headlines, they're always going to change. But you can bet your entire company on this one thing. People will react to risk, to social pressure, and to opportunity in the future in the exact same ways they have for centuries.
Now, when you start focusing on these timeless signals, you notice a really dangerous pattern, especially for companies that are already successful. Housel calls it the paradox of success. It's how these long periods of calm and stability actually end up planting the seeds for a future crisis. The economist Hyman Minsky explained this cycle perfectly. When everything's going great, when the waters are calm, we kind of forget what storms feel like. We underestimate risk, we take on more debt, and we just assume the good times will last forever. And that very sense of calm is what sets the stage for the coming storm. So here's that cycle broken down into 4 stages. It all starts with stability. Then that stability breeds overconfidence. And that overconfidence, it feels more leverage, more debt. Then, boom, an inevitable shock hits the system. All that hidden risk gets exposed, and you've got a crisis on your hands. Your job as a leader is to be brutally honest about where your organization and your entire industry is in this cycle.
Recognizing this cycle is one thing, but actually preparing for it, that's a whole other ballgame. This requires concrete defensive strategies, and the first play is, by far, the most important. You have to ensure you can survive the short-term chaos that is absolutely guaranteed to come. Here's the core principle. You can only be an optimist in the long run if you are pessimistic enough in the short run. You have to be paranoid enough to survive the downturns that you know are coming. Because survival isn't just important, it's everything. It's the absolute prerequisite for any future success. You gotta stay in the game. Practically, this means you're building a strategic fortress, not just some sleek, efficient machine. You need a balance sheet with strong cash reserves, not just enough to get by. You need some redundancy and slack in your operations, not some hyper-efficient system that's going to snap at the first sign of stress. You have to plan for a margin of error, because let's face it, something always goes wrong.
This is such a critical mental shift. Market volatility, it's not a fine you pay because you screwed up. It's the fee. It's the price of admission you pay to be in the game. It's the cost you have to endure to earn those incredible rewards of long-term compounding and growth. But just surviving is only half the battle. Once you've built that fortress to withstand the storm, you can shift your focus to actually thriving. And that comes from aligning your strategy with those timeless constants we talked about earlier. This is where you go on offense. See, once you've secured your short-term survival by saving like a pessimist, you've earned the right to invest like an optimist. Now you can confidently put capital toward long-term, compounding growth because you've built the resilience to handle the bumps along the road. This quote from Jeff Bezos just nails the strategic shift you have to make. Everyone is obsessed with what's gonna change. That's all noise. The truly profound question, the one almost nobody asks, is what's not going to change? You don't build an enduring business by guessing the future. You build it by anchoring to what is permanent. And Amazon is the ultimate case study here. Just look at this table. It shows their incredible discipline. They actively ignore the noise, the daily stock price, the quarterly earnings pressure, what their competitors are announcing. Instead, they pour all their energy into the signal. Those timeless customer desires for lower prices, faster delivery, and a wider selection. They know for a fact that those things are a stable bedrock they can build on for decades to come. So the playbook here is pretty clear. First, anchor your entire company vision on solving a timeless customer need. Second, reinvest everything you can into building durable advantages that serve that need better than anyone else. And third, and this is the hard part, have the institutional patience to let those small, consistent gains compound into something extraordinary. I mean, it's the blueprint used by all the greats, from Amazon to Berkshire Hathaway. So if there's one key takeaway from this whole briefing, it's this. Your greatest competitive edge doesn't come from having a better crystal ball. It comes from outbehaving your competition. It's all about building the financial resilience and the psychological patience to make it to the other side, no matter how shaky the bridge looks. And that brings us to the final question, the one I want you to take back to your leadership team. When you really look at your current strategic plan, ask yourselves this: is it built on the shifting sands of prediction, or is it built on the bedrock of timeless human behavior? Because in a world that's defined by surprise, that's the only foundation that will truly ever endure.